We had an investor in here yesterday that was wanting to build shelters or invest money into building shelters and different kinds of things. And it's, homeless is a very fascinating conversation in America, because you're right. Because when I lived in San Francisco 20 years ago, they were giving checks to homeless people. And my thing is, if you give checks, just flake money, right, to homeless people, then you're going to bring more homeless people to your city, and the homeless population is going to grow. And so for
And
me,
look what happened. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's exploded. Right? California is disgusting with homeless, and I don't mean that homeless people are disgusting. Homeless people are just people, right? But the problem and the issue of people living on the streets, and I walk through LA and I step over people that are out of their minds on drugs, just walking down business districts, and people shooting up drugs in the middle of the city of LA. And I just recently moved from California to Florida a few months ago, and I did it because I didn't feel safe in a main city financial district. You got a Bank of America headquarters there, and forgive me, I'm not saying which banks they are, just Bank of America is an example. Chase headquarters there, and a major law firm headquarters there with their 100-foot story buildings, and you can't walk from one of those buildings to the next one without feeling like there's a danger. And and that's pretty mind blowing to me. And if you just give people handouts, I believe there's a difference between handouts for the homeless that are just handouts, and then they're setting up proper mental health for people with mental health issues. And I, obviously they haven't been able to figure out the problem, but.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm more in tune with people that have every ability to go to work, every ability to have a decent job. They choose not to because they have more of a benefit by what they're getting to actually going out and actually working. And that's my problem. And that has been created over the last 2-3 years from all the stimulus that's been handed out, and by the way, they're not taking the foot off the gas on that stimulus. It's still there. So no wonder we're in this position, no wonder we're in this situation, and no wonder now we have to.
But what do you think about universal basic income? Right, I've heard that conversation, that topic kicked around, right? That there's a basic income that people could be making. But what's your thought on that?
It's a little bit out in left field for me. I'm old school. Listen, I grew up in Canada, so Canada back when I was a child to what it is now. I now live in the United States, but Canada's become a socialist country. Absolute socialism at its finest. You have your free med, you're covered on socialized medicine. It's a disaster. It doesn't work. So I think if you're looking at kind of a blanketed income across the board, listen, anytime you try to take control of people's lives, especially in the healthcare field, and that's a prime example, it doesn't work. America is the greatest economy in the world.
What about, and I'm just throwing stuff out, right? I don't have a dog in this fight. What about a universal basic income, but that has a progressive, stair-stepped work to play system, where maybe, let's say, if every American, right, let's just say, made $100,000 a year. And granted, I have plenty of employees that make less than 100,000 a year, and plenty of employees that make more than 100,000 a year, right? But let's just say every American, just as a thought experiment, made 100,000 a year. But to make that 100,000 a year, you have to be gainfully employed, right? Working, for a company or organization or business, in America, and you put some other parameters on it, some other reasonable parameters on it, and what if we changed, and it's just a thought experiment, what if you changed the dynamic and you said, not only do we create a universal basic income, but 10% of that income has, instead of 10% going to taxes, right? Because I think, government having more money doesn't do us any good as Americans. It's just, my general belief is the government has plenty of money, and it's the effective use of the money will empower the government to do great things, right? And great things are done by our government, to be crystal clear, in my opinion. But at the same time, there's a lot of waste. And so let's say 10% of that money has to go to charitable organizations. And you start changing, and it's just, it's a random thought. I've never even really had a deep thought into this. I don't know. What do you think if there was like a progressive
it's
to play kind of system?
I hear what you said, but it's totally against what America's all about and what it's been built on. And you reward people that have taken risks. You reward people that have been creative. You know, if so, you know, I mean, it's like, for instance, this billionaire tax is coming on. Should we tax these billionaires, you know, more than what everyone else is making? Well, you know, yeah, they got so much money. Don't have a problem with it. But if you start making this for every American, everyone's going to be set on it. It's totally, it's not what America is built on. And you made
Well,
something else. You made,
so you tell me, as an immigrant, right, into the US, right? You tell me what are your beliefs that America is built on?
well, I mean, my wife is American. So, I mean, I'm not, I would say an immigrant, like a guy coming up through the southern border. I mean, that's the first off. I came through legally, and that's what I think every person coming to this country should be doing,
Agreed.
coming through legally. Listen, I'm a capitalist. Okay. I like people that build businesses, employ people, take the risk in employing people. And I believe in people that make those risks and take those risks with the business that's doing sweat and tears and basically creating something. I think they should be given tax breaks. I think they should be given incentives for doing so. However, the push has been to basically have these people take the risks, increase the benefits for their employees, which is a cost to that business, increase taxes to that business. So they're strangling what America is built on, and that's by people being creative and being capitalistic. You made a comment earlier. You said our government has a lot of money, and our government doesn't have a lot of money. They're completely broke. They just decide to print more money. And
Well, I mean,
that's
in
a
the sense
problem.
that where I disagree with you, right, is our government is massively in debt, right? And they have endless debt, but the government is receiving trillions of dollars, right? Hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars, right, from the American taxpayer, every single year. Now, what they choose to do, the effective risk, right, or the effective use of that money is different, right? I will tell you that, Elon Musk became the richest man in the world for a company that spent a long time, right, not turning a profit. But he had a lot of money, and he had a lot of money he put to work, a lot of money he put to play, a lot of money, that he made something, he's going to be, one of, I think when 500 years from now, people look back at our world, they're going to look at him as one of the impacts, an Albert Einstein type of impact, on our world. And so I look at those kind of things. And so I think the fascinating thought experience is I don't think anything you just said takes away from anything from the previous thought experiment, in the sense that I still think if you had a pay to play, which means people have to work, right? Universal income, it doesn't take away from the capitalists still making more money, or the capitalists who take risks winning bigger. Like for me, don't get me wrong for a second, right? I'm an absolute capitalist in the sense that I have, built an empire from scratch, not generationally gifted to me, not handed down, not lucky, and those kind of things. And so, I go, some things counterintuitive to what some people think, in the sense they're like, pay your employees the least amount you have to pay them, to keep them working and keep them happy. Or, I take care of, our employees to an extreme level. And, I pay for, 75% of their healthcare and other things that I do for our people. And people are always asking me, well, why do we pay more people? Or why are we giving bonuses? And why are we giving raises? Why are we giving people a percentage of the pie, right? And granted, I still have the largest percentage of that pie with my partner, my business partner, right? But at the same time, I believe in the inclusive, right, stakeholdership of my people, right? And if my people have stakeholdership in the mission and the purpose and the vision, it makes a big difference. And granted, I'm not saying I'm trying to institute and practice this theory. It's just a theory that if people had to work in order to receive that UBI, I wonder how many people in America, if they could make 100K a year, and they knew they could make 100K a year, and they had to work in order to do it. It's very different to think that I'm going to go to Chipotle and I'm going to work the front line, right, for $15 an hour, when people are getting these things, right? But if people knew they had to go to Chipotle, and we were to set up, but it would change the financial system in a way that is probably impossible to understand or read.
You choose to pay your employees well. That's why you have a successful business. Your employees love you. They'll work. They'll do whatever. Like that's the kind of thing that you've created. The minute you start blanketing a common wage and people start to get equal, and we make sure people make a certain amount of money, you turn an employee from an asset into a liability.
An entitled employee is a horrible thing.
Absolutely.
It really is. And you know, we've
Absolutely.
seen it, you know, when there's a false expectation of, you know, versus of right versus, you know, versus right to work, which are two different things. You know,
Mhm.
I have the right to just be here versus I have a right to work here, are two kind of different, very different things.
Or you've earned it. Exactly. But
Yeah.
back to your crypto.